Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today is our newest update of the ongoing civil war that is taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. The fighting continues as Tigrayan Defense Forces fighting in the Afar region are redeploying forces from the Afar front. We are really looking at forces from the TDF moving from the Gulena and Yalo frontal zone of operations, which is due east of Alamata. These forces are apparently redeploying in their efforts to move south towards Dese. We can confirm that Weldia is still firmly in the control of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, as is Mursa and other areas south of Mursa, as well as the TDF continue to press its operations towards the Dese-Kombolcha gap. We have received reports that there have been some fairly significant airstrikes by the Ethiopian Air Force on targets inside of the Amhara region, quite possibly targeting even civilian areas as well. And the reason I say that is because the precision capability of the Ethiopian Air Force is very little. They are dropping, in most cases, dumb bombs. They are utilizing free flight rockets with no guidance systems to attack targets inside of the Amhara region, which inherently would lead to targets such as towns and mistaken targets being hit. But those activities continue, be it at a very minimal success rate, so to speak. Again, we can see from the deployments of the Tigrayan Defense Forces in terms of how it moves in columns, and the density of these movements of forces would indicate that the Ethiopian Air Force's airstrikes are not a significant threat, or not perceived as a significant threat. Otherwise, we would see different tactics being deployed by the Tigrayan Defense Forces in terms of how they are moving, in terms of heading south deeper into the Amhara region, and deploying forces from the Tigray region further south as well. So we're not seeing that. If we were seeing fairly significant airstrikes where they were accurate, and the TDF was concerned about those airstrikes, we would see a different type of tactic being used in terms of how the Tigrayan Defense Forces move from point A to point B. So we're not seeing that as of yet. Could that change? Possibly. We continue to hear about the possible deployment of drones, and I would assume that if those Turkish drones were delivered, they are in the process of being trained up for delivery and operational deployment of those drones. Now, just how many are being used, how many and what type of precision-guided munitions the Ethiopian military could be using, that's an unknown. I would assume at some point, if the Ethiopian military were to have successful strikes against the Tigrayan Defense Forces, the Ethiopian state would then broadcast that for general consumption to increase morale on the war effort, just as the Azeris did against the Armenians in the Nagorno-Karabakh War. But again, just going back to the southeastern front, Weldia is fully under the control of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, as are areas further south, all the way to Haik. Sakota, Lalibela, these areas, Gashina, are still under the control of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and they have not lost ground along these fronts. Now, with that being said, is the opposition becoming stiffer in terms of the type of opposition we are seeing, the defensive capabilities in terms of the Ethiopian military and really the Amhara militia paramilitaries? Yes, it is becoming more denser as we move into more heavily populated areas, which was to be assumed that would actually occur. But again, we are seeing rather intense battles taking place south of Mersa, near Hayek and towards Dese, and we can confirm that the Tigrayan Defense Forces are continuing to move heavy weapons up towards the frontal lines of the Dese engagement area. We continue to see the Tigrayan Defense Forces encircle Debark, and fighting continues in the vicinity of Dabat and south as the Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to move more significant forces into this area of operation and continue to threaten Gondar. But this area right now is the main area of operations in terms of the Tigray region versus the Amhara region and the centralized Prosperity Party Abiy Ahmed government. With that being said, we're also seeing significant activity and chaos really being provided in the form of the Oromo Liberation Army. They are very active in western Oromia. Right now, we are seeing quite a bit of activity. As you see on my map, the yellow areas indicate activity of the Oromo Liberation Army. The cities that are both red and yellow and blink would indicate ongoing conflict, meaning the Oromo Liberation Army is engaged with regional security forces directly in these areas, and we're seeing fighting. But again, significant areas are under the control of the Oromo Liberation Army, and fighting continues. And I don't want to discount the activities and the chaos that is being sowed by the Oromo Liberation Army. And when I mean chaos, the chaos that is being perpetuated upon the Ethiopian federal government and its ability to fight both the OLA and other groups, in fact, that are now rising up in other areas as well. But again, that's really kind of a hampering effort, the main war effort against the Tigrayan Defense Forces. But fairly significant areas under the control of the OLA. There are really no-go zones for the central government and regional security forces in the Oromia region, and very large areas are in fact now under the control of the OLA. And we are trying to assess the actual manpower that exists inside of the OLA at this point, as well as we believe that it could possibly now have exceeded up to 10,000 personnel as the ranks continue to swell with volunteers. I believe at the beginning of this conflict, we were probably looking at around 2,000 to 5,000 members of the OLA, but again, that appears to be expanding at this point, and in which it's becoming a fairly significant fighting force against the centralized government inside of Ethiopia. But back to the main issue at hand, what is going on along the southern front. But again, there was some really erroneous reports in terms of certain areas being taken by the Ethiopian government. There are certain elements inside of the Ethiopian media based in Addis Ababa that are utilizing photographs that have been taken previously and then reusing these photographs to show that a certain area possibly has been retaken, but we believe that is simply not the case. Now, on the flip side of that, when a Tigrayan Defense Force unit moves into an area that they had never been in before, it is relatively easy to say that, okay, yes, the TDF is obviously operating in this area because they simply have never been there, right? So it would be very difficult for the TDF to say otherwise. On the other side of the coin, with the Amhara regional militias, it's very easy to snap a photograph and then a few weeks later, after the loss of the town, to then show a photograph and claim it was retaken. Very easy to do that. Very hard to verify these reports as well, because gaining information and getting in on the ground is tremendously difficult at this point. But again, that's the report for today. As things continue, I will definitely have further reports. Have a great day, everybody.